from Tennessee.
That should be our default background.
Shouldn't it? We sing Rocky Top every time we open.
Well, thanks for.
I was never a Tennessee fan, and I don't really proclaim to be one to this day. But you can't help but like Tennessee. They're fun. The songs are great. I mean,
Well, I mean, who doesn't like the song "Rocky Top" by
yeah,
the Osborne brothers,
yeah,
the greatest song of all time?
yeah. I mean, people are always like, "Paul, are you a Tennessee fan?" I said, "No, I'm actually a Seton Hall fan." But shit, they're fun. Let's go to a game, drink beer.
Seton Hall. I always forget where that is. Where is Seton Hall located? Did you leave me?
Oh, I muted myself. Sorry about that.
Dang.
It's smack. It's Campus State,
Where?
Kansas State.
Oh, Kansas State. Are you from
Yep.
Kansas?
No, so I was friends with a couple of guys that played on their basketball team, and so um, it's you know it's basically like you guilt by association. That's probably the best way to put it.
I was trying to get some. I was watching old Mike Tyson fights, thinking about strategy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
yeah. I mean, what is it about the right? Why do we keep losing? Why don't
Well, there is. Do you really want to understand the concept? So it's
right now I'm open
historical.
to anything.
So it's referred to as Tytler's cycle. Are you familiar with William Tytler?
No, I'm just from Hickson, Tennessee. I don't know anything.
Oh, hush. You're also highly intelligent, so don't even play that shit with me. I know better, damn it. You don't get to play stupid with me. So, William Tytler was a Irishman, and he said that a democracy, or Scottish, excuse me, he said that a democracy or a republic cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It will continue to exist up until the time that voters discover that they can vote themselves generous gifts from the public treasury, and from then on, the majority always votes for the candidates who promise the most benefits from the public treasury, with the result being that they finally collapse, the industry finally collapses due to loose fiscal policy, and it's always followed by a dictatorship. And we know that that takes place about every 250 years within any republic or any democracy. It happens over and over and over again. And he created what is referred to as the Alexander Tytler cycle. And you will see me post it every so often. It is a wheel that begins with slavery, and then people gain faith, begin to demonstrate courage. Courage results in them achieving their liberty. Liberty and freedom lead to an abundance. Selfishness begins to take over. They become complacent. They become apathetic towards their own liberty. They then become dependent on the government again, and the end result is bondage. And so it goes through this circle over and over and over and over and over again. And there is an argument that we are in the middle of the last phase of the Tytler cycle. People have become largely dependent, or are becoming largely dependent on the federal government, and it is beginning to consolidate its power.
So now I know what happened to the Aztecs.
Well, so there's a theory that the Aztecs actually just went to the moon, but I don't buy into that one.
Warsaw Patriot is asking if we can stop talking about politics. Well, the problem is
This is history.
it's history and it permeates our humanity. It's just a where we are as humans. This is the cycle that we go through that Paul is describing.
Well, Warsaw is actually right there, though. We're repeating Germany, and Germany was another great example of Alexander Tytler's cycle. They when they were completely ruined, they became dependent on the government, and that's when Nazism kicked in.
Nazism is just such a small example, though, of the overall existence of humanity.
It
Right?
is.
How many cycles have we gone through? That's just one of them.
We as
Yeah.
far as we can tell, we go through it every 250 years. If you look at Rome, if you look at Greece, if you look, all these civilizations that are much older than us, they have all gone through the cycle. Now, the longest existing civilizations settle into bondage and stay there, which is a crazy thought, but it's true. China, the Russian force, these areas of the world have settled into bondage and have stayed in a level of bondage for the longest period of time. And there's a theory that they will eventually emerge on the other side of that. But humans tend to stay the longest in bondage.
You know what? Here's one of the cycles that we go through as humans too. Look, Duncan is out there in the chat. He's one of my he's atdrafting.com customers, right?
Awesome.
I feel like that I can't talk about certain things because of the business
Right.
aspect. You see,
Yeah.
we are in we can
We
start,
lost a cultural fight.
we lost it.
Yeah.
We've been censored to the point to where, and I love Duncan. He's a cool guy. He's a European guy and he lives in Texas. I think he's a UK guy. Okay, and I like him. And this is not about Duncan, but it is about the fact that we have been defeated on the front that I feel like I can't talk about this kind of stuff or it will affect my business.
Well, we
Yeah.
enabled censorship. You're exactly right. And
Yeah.
somebody asked me the other day at what point we began to lose this fight. And I said, actually, we started to lose it in the 1950s when it became acceptable to begin to remove God and to begin to allow more liberal perspectives in the education system. Then it began to decline very rapidly. And so right now, 25 years ago, there were a few liberal teachers and almost no liberal superintendents. And now you're really super lucky if you find somebody in the education system that's not super liberal.
They don't exist. I can promise you that because I've been married to two teachers, and both of their fathers were teachers before them, and it's a disease.
It is.
And sorry, Richard and Duncan. I didn't mean to call you Europeans. Richard and Duncan are both from the UK.
Englishmen do not believe that they are Europeans. I would agree with that concept.
I apologize.
Well, Vanessa, I believe that you are probably a minority, or you live in an area of the world where liberalism is not common.
Well, the thing about math teachers is they're more logical than most
they have to be.
other teachers, right?
Math is based on reality.
Warsaw Patriots getting censored. What did he say? In Germany, there were. I'm gonna show his comment because.
I agree with what he's saying.
YouTube was trying to censor him.
Yep. There were Germans that didn't agree. Most of the Germans didn't agree. They thought they were defending their homeland. Just because the message was bad, though, doesn't mean that you don't buy into it at some point.
Operation Valkyrie. Yeah.
Operation Valkyrie is a great example.
Yeah, Tom Cruise.
Oh, no. Please. Not the abortion that was Tom Cruise's movie.
That's funny. Oh, yeah. It was pretty good. I mean, you have to admit it was all right.
As a French man whose families, was victimized by the Nazi Empire and who the men have served proudly for the armed forces across the world. I can remember the day that the Berlin Wall fell and my grandparents being super, super upset about that. And everybody was looking at them cross-eyed, and it occurred to me why they were so upset. In their lifetime, the German Empire had started 2 world wars. Millions of people had died because of the Germans. And so allowing the reunification of Eastern and Western Germany in their minds was reigniting a potential world where Adolf Hitler or any of the Germanic tribes might once again start another world war.
The Nazis have done to Germany what the liberals have done to America.
Yes, very much so.
You know, I
Yep.
mean, I just, I don't know. Why study
Well,
math? Everything's
like
fractions.
I said, it's pretty well invariable. Um, I'm not concerned about it from the standpoint of understanding where it's going, only how fast it happens. So there's an old rule that says the faster your country tears itself apart, the better, because more of the young men and young women of young age still retain the knowledge as well as their lives. If it takes a really super long time, they become the education systems get to the point where you do not get young men and women of valor, and you do not get many of them that survive, and so it becomes very difficult to recover.
I think Vanessa Kitty's funny. She's talking about math classes on ranges. That's good because you can explain to
Yeah,
45 people who are fans of 45 why 9 millimeter is faster and better than the,
velocity
the
math.
slower big butt. It's like me running down the field versus, you know, Paul running down the field. Who's going to get there first and who's going to do more damage, right?
Well, Tony, if you get there,
If I get there,
it's over.
the enemy can move before I get there.
I'm just saying, if you throw your weight around just like a 45, somebody's going to get hurt.
It just has to be somebody willing to hold still until I get there.
Right. Stupid grows on trees, man. Stupid grows on trees. I,
Which
I
one's on?
just polished a 1985 penny to the point where it looks brand new. This Flitz is really good polish.
That penny would make a good jacket if you melted it down.
It would, wouldn't it?
Uh,
Vanessa says her 44 Magnum is pretty fast. I would agree. Vanessa, to this day, I still carry a 44 Magnum strapped to my chest for when I'm bear hunting in case my infield malfunctions.
yeah, you got to have something decent as a sidearm if you're going to go bear hunting.
Yeah.
You can't
It's a great panic
you
weapon.
can't just carry a bow and arrow with you.
Yeah. The only way I practice with that weapon is to point it at a target that's about 10 yards away and unload all 6 rounds as quickly as possible.
I remember when Alex was in scouts and we were trying, we were doing the bow and arrow thing, and it was pretty funny because we were doing some stuff in the backyard with the ballistics gel and the bows and arrows, and I was 3D printing arrowheads and all this kind of
Oh,
stuff.
nice.
I was thinking, you know what? It's hard. It's hard to hit something with the, you know,
Especially if you're panicked.
you got to be
So,
right there, man.
Vanessa, I think that a 9 millimeter has a slightly higher foot pound of energy on a standard round. We can look that up. And Warsaw Patriot got a war axe. Heck yeah, man. Call to Francisca. Jeff Abbas uses 4570 for deer and bear. Nothing is overkill if you if you're using it right. Let's see. We're gonna go foot pounds. Pounds. 45 versus 9 millimeter. I know 9 millimeter is a little higher. I feel like.
It's kind of funny though because see, I was getting a text. Sorry. Why are people texting me at night about business? It's 8:40.
Don't they know it's bedtime?
I know it's almost bedtime. 9 o'clock, baby. Man,
Oh, I am way wrong. 45 ACP in a standard round has something between 200 and
70.
600 foot pounds more.
Oh, well, at some point it becomes about penetration too, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, this is what's funny though. I mean, the reason I said anything about it in the first place is that it's kind of minutia. We kind of get this is
Oh yeah.
how this is how the left wins because while we're fighting about
Pounds.
this 45 versus 9 millimeter, they're taking over the world. You know,
I don't believe they're taking over the world. I
yeah.
believe they're taking over our world. But uh, there are countries right now that are watching what's happening to us who are going super conservative as we speak. We're actually seeing countries begin to completely remove social media limitations. Any type of censorship on social media. There's a huge advocacy process beginning up in other parts of the world. What's the old saying? If you can't be the example of how to do things right, just be a horrible warning to everybody else. And to some extent, that's what's happening. I really think.
That's what happens when you see somebody practicing with 45 ACP, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You watched my last video, right? At the time of my life, I didn't hit anything. Um,
Actually, I'm a pretty good shot with my Colt 1911, but the
yep.
problem is, it only holds 7 rounds and it's 2 pounds heavier. So,
Right.
what am I going to do?
I still have the first 45 I ever bought, and it's a good weapon. I don't carry it anymore. Vanessa is like me. It's time to restart the education system. I agree wholeheartedly. I think the conservatives should be aiming towards homeschooling again.
Do we have 50 years to reverse it, though? That's the
I
question.
I don't think we need it. I think we just need one generation of homeschool. I think that's enough. I don't think you'll ever reverse the public education system, but it's not like liberals are having a bunch of kids and sending them to public school, right? These are conservative kids. These are the sons and daughters of the parents that are doing well, right? And so they send their kids to school and they get taught by liberal teachers to become crazy people.
Here's what happens, though. It's like with me and Alex. Alex was gifted.
Yeah.
So when you have smart kids, conservative parents tend to leave them to their own demise.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So which is kind of a mistake because when you do that, they're, what am I trying to say?
When you lead them to their own devices, they become more impressionable.
They do, and somehow society has taught them or expects them to be progressive, more progressive than not.
Yep, I would agree.
So it's a sort of a self-defeating, like I'm an objective person, and so I allowed my child to be objective. So they become so objective, they become progressive, and it almost, not really, but kind of. It's hard to explain. It's frustrating, to be honest with you.
Well, my parents forced me to go to church. Okay. And what I learned from church was that there was something bigger than me in the world, which meant no matter how intelligent I was, I couldn't suddenly be the most dominant force in the world, right?
So you need to mute the YouTube side if you're. Who is that joined us?
Fellow artisan also has his YouTube active, and so we can hear both.
Yeah. Is that Duncan?
It is. Hello.
I thought I recognized your face there.
That is the best accent in the world.
We need.
Well, I can't change it, so that's just as well.
Yeah, right. You might as well be a good one.
So, it's funny, Duncan, because I struggle with this all the time, right? I feel like that I have to. Oh, what is it about having to hide your politics or just be what society expects you to be, uh, so that you don't worry about pushing away customers or people you're trying to work for. You know.
Yeah, the media has certainly done a very good job of trying to make fools of people that have sound minds and think certain ways. It's quite surprising that just
I,
I mean, you don't have to be a radical right, just moderates, and
Yep.
you think certain things. Your sort of woke culture, cancel culture, just seems to shut you down. It's quite surprising how quickly it's happened.
a friend of mine said the other day Adolf Hitler was jealous of the type of publicity and media support that the left was getting right now. And when I thought about what he was saying, I realized he was right.
Yeah.
Well, Kingpin says in the chat, people on the right got all their feelings and are very concerned about what the left think of them. Well, it's a very real concern because I have a lot of customers who are progressive. I have, if you look at my project map on my website, you'll see that I have people out in California, 2 or 3 there, some across the world, and I worry. It's a real worry. I don't want to offend them because of my politics. I want to help them with their projects. I hope that they don't get offended. So I do. It is stifling, to be honest with you, and that's a real concern. I'm not afraid. I mean, I just I don't know. It's difficult.
Business big strange bedfellows, and really the answer to that question becomes: do you just discontinue business with people that make you uncomfortable? Because you still live in a country where that's your right. You know what I mean? Financially, you can suffer impact if you wish to stick by your guns.
Well, I don't want to put somebody through a litmus test just before
Right.
they become a customer. That seems a bit 1984ish to me.
It does.
That would be hypocritical, I think, of me to ask
Yep.
Duncan what his politics are before I help him with his project.
Yep.
And I would never do that. But I hope that my customers don't judge me because I have a side of me on YouTube that likes to hang out with people of like minds.
I'd like to think that we could once again live in a world where we didn't listen to politicians who were so set on dragging us apart that they were successful in doing that very thing.
I listened to a podcast the other day. Megyn Kelly, remember her from Fox News?
Yeah. Yeah.
She then moved to ABC, I think, then left. And now she has her own podcast. And I was bored and doing a puzzle, and I listened to a podcast of her, and she had as her guest Jerry Springer. So I thought this would be interesting, and I actually found it a very interesting, and it made me feel good about both Jerry Springer and also Megyn Kelly. That, I mean, Megyn Kelly's not a Republican; she's not left, but she's somewhere in the middle. Well, she's more of a free thinker. But what was interesting and what was great, these two people that were very different in their politics were able to have a really great discussion about all sorts of things, even touching on politics, without the stupid hate and all the stuff that we've been seeing lately. And what I saw of Jerry Springer, I mean, I never knew the guy had done so much. I never knew he had such a human heart. It was very interesting just to hear the guy speak. And I thought, well, That's interesting. He's clearly has left a centre views than Meghan, but they were both able to be very cordial.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think the common person is really as vitriolic or uh, as separated as the media slash politicians would like us to believe. We tend to be useful idiots that they play like little pawn pieces against each other.
Yeah.
I have taught 4 liberals this month how to shoot, and 2 conservatives. And the interesting thing is, we've all carried on perfectly acceptable conversations about how important the First and Second Amendment were. And they both shared the exact same perspective, that they were afraid that each other's political candidate was going to be the one that caused the loss of those rights. And so that, to me, screams that we're being played.
Yeah. Wow.
What's a bit annoying to me is that you can't, especially with Trump, you can't agree with the policies without agreeing with the personality.
That's insane. I didn't agree with any of the personality that Reagan had,
right?
But I love some of his policy.
Yeah, that's the thing. I voted for Trump because of what I assumed, and I thought I was correct over time about his foreign policy and his economic policy.
Yep.
And but when people judge me for supporting Trump, it's always about his personality, not
true.
the policy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so, I have proposed a solution to our border problem, and neither the right nor the left will talk to me about it. And that is that we shut all of the borders. Everybody who's in the country now becomes legal, not a citizen, but legal. And then that means that nobody can exploit them for work, right? You have to pay them a livable wage just like you would anybody else, because they can't be used as creative slave labor. And then you take the 9 some odd billion dollars that we're spending a year on welfare programs for illegal immigrants because they can't live within our own society because of our own rule sets. And then you use that, a third of that money to maintain border security. And so it becomes a financially stabilizing process. But neither the left nor the right will talk to me about it because that involves compromise.
Well,
and neither group is willing.
So the only thing I take exception to there is exploitation, because I know for a fact I've been in the construction industry for 40 years, and they have learned, when they first came in, they may have been exploited, but now they have learned our pricing structure in the
right.
And now
capitalism.
They're very you know what I mean? There's not much competition. I mean, there's competition, but they're not being exploited certainly anymore. Yeah. So there's plenty of sides to that.
Well, there are definitively perspectives, but I'll tell you right now that child trafficking across our southern border is a nightmare.
Yeah.
And those people, I will give you what you're saying, because you have a lot more experience than I do in it, and I can definitely see that as a logical perspective. But at minimum, child trafficking could definitely stop.
that has to stop, because they are definitely being exploited, because they know that if a child gets here, there's a 98% chance he or she will remain here and become part of
Yep.
I've been in the States 19 years now, and I became a citizen of the US in 2013 after a very, very long process.
It's not easy.
It took me 10 years, pretty much, from arriving. I arrived with a visa, a proper work visa, and I was working here, and then I got a green card, and then after the green card, I then applied for citizenship. It was a very long process. I don't know what it's like now. Even during those 10 years, it got a bit more transparent, as you could see where your ticket was in the system. But it's the system's not very good. I had
No.
to I had to call a friend, and at that time it was George W.'s government, and I knew someone who knew the chair, who was the chairperson of the Senate Immigration Committee, and I had to fire my silver bullet, and I made a call to her because I was about to get thrown out of the country because they had lost my paperwork.
Oh Lord, yeah,
And all it took was one call, and within 19 hours, I had my paperwork. It
and
should not be that way.
That's what I'm saying. If we weren't spending all the money that should be going towards processing efficiently on welfare systems for people who can't get their citizen because they came here illegally, how much better would the system be? Exactly. Lord, privatize it.
Yeah.
Make it a metric thing for people that work that job. You know what I mean?
That would make a huge difference. Yeah. Have some service. Yeah.
Yes. Because I'm not the guy who believes we shouldn't have people from other countries here. It's good for the genetic pool.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've had several friends, and Duncan, I had a good friend who his family was from the UK. They moved to Canada, and he was actually born in Canada, and then he became a U.S. citizen while I was in high school. He was a good friend of mine when I was in high school, and he actually ended up becoming an Air Force, a colonel. He retired a colonel in the Air Force, so it was obviously a great asset. Became a great asset to our country.
Wow.
And he ended up passing away just recently, but he was a good friend of mine. Colonel Michael Wright, salute.
Nice.
But Richard Maunder, I don't know if he's still here. He's one. We need to hook you up with him because he's been trying to get to the U.S. I don't know how it currently works, but I'm certainly not against immigration, obviously, but
it's quite an arduous process. It's possible, but it takes time.
I remember it took him about 10 years.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, I'm sorry, boss. I promised somebody that I'd be somewhere else, but when I saw you go live, I wasn't going to leave you out here alone.
I really appreciate that. You know what? I thank you. You're a good friend, and I appreciate it. And thank you, Duncan, too.
Yeah, thank you.
It was just sort of a spur of the moment thing. I thought, it's I don't know. Sometimes it's good just to get things off your chest.
It is,
and it's nice to have people who will jump in and talk with you about that. And all the people in the chat are cool too. I know most of these people, and they're all good people.
Yep. Everybody but Warsaw Patriot.
Yes, but him. Yes.
All right. We'll see you later, my brother.
All right. See you. So Duncan, if you don't mind, I'm going to cut it off here. I really appreciate. I'm going to work on your project this weekend too. I promise.
All right. Sweet. Okay, Tony. Have a good weekend.
You too. Thank you, Duncan. Thanks for jumping in. Okay, I appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
See you. All right. Yes. Thanks to Paul and Duncan for jumping in, and thanks for everyone in the chat. It's just sometimes it gets, you just want to hear other people. You just want to hear like-minded people, and it's cool to see you guys are out there. Thanks.